Freddie, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Knut. Really nice to be on. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, no problem. We had Susie on a couple of weeks back, and you're a part of the same policy institute or Bitcoin Policy UK, right? In the UK. So it's not the Bitcoin Policy Institute. That's another thing. But it's an organization in the UK. That's We'll get into all that, but before that, I'll let you give our listeners TLDR on Freddie. Knew who you are when you found Bitcoin, like what you're doing now, and all of it.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, starting with Susie and BP UK is a good place. So Susie and I are the co-founders of Bitcoin Policy UK, and in part we were actually inspired by BPI and the great team there in the US. You know, David Zell, Zach. Now Matthew Pines has joined as well, Troy Cross, Margo Pyers, all of those good people, and many others as well. So partly inspired by their work and also by the conference that was put on in Edinburgh a few years back by Jordan Walker and Jim Duffy and team, we realized that there wasn't really a comparable body in the UK giving coin-only information to regulators and to lawmakers. So you'll probably be aware that obviously the crypto lobby is very well funded, largely by selling shitcoins to the public, but I'm sure we can go into that in a bit more detail. But there was no comparable efforts in the UK, and that was what we set out to do. And we've been going for about 2.5 years now. As to how I found Bitcoin, well, I found it quite early, but I didn't actually get any until quite late, because like many of us, I'm very, very stupid. And if I had been less stupid, I would obviously been a lot more successful. But so I first heard about it, I think, in 2013, where during the Cypriot banking crisis, I was working as a lawyer at the time and very interested. For any of your listeners who don't remember what happened at that point, there was essentially a bail-in in where all deposits that were held in Cypriot banks above a particular amount were essentially impounded to keep those banks financially viable. And I was utterly appalled by that idea that, you know, you're essentially, it really brought home to me the point that your money in the bank is not money. And as we know, it's not yours either, as was quite strongly demonstrated by what happened in Cyprus. And I came across Bitcoin then. I thought it was interesting. I read a few articles. And then, of course, I forgot about it. Many such cases, I think. Then a couple of years later, I picked up my interest again. I used to build computers for fun, and I just built a huge gaming rig. And I thought, I remember hearing that you could mine Bitcoin on GPUs. I'll give that a go. Again, my stupidity got the better of me. I think ASICs had been released maybe a year before. So I fried my computer quite badly and I didn't make any Bitcoin, but I learned about how to run a node, and
I was there too. I actually hobby mined. The same story, like when the ASICs had already come out, so I was desperately trying to mine something, but the futile, to say the least.
Yeah, that makes me feel a bit better. I'd to hear you say that.
Happy to help.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. You're very kind. But I hope you found it as well. It was even if I didn't make any Bitcoin, it was a fun experience, and it was really when you enjoyed it.
I think this is so long ago that this is 2014, maybe, or maybe a little later, right?
Similar time,
it's probably
14,
like
15.
15, 16, maybe. And I think I mined Bitcoin and Litecoin or something, and that I found the bunch of Litecoin on a USB stick a couple of years later. Like, holy shit, this is quite a lot. I'm going to exchange them for Bitcoin immediately. So,
good stuff.
Because I had a very short shitcoin phase, like very, very short. I remember putting $10 into a multi-currency wallet. And just the extreme sum of $10, $1 in each shitcoin, and 8 of them went down and 2 of them went up. So on average, I lost, and I thought, like, well, I'm never going to be able to, like, I'm not a trader. I'm not, I have no insider information. Most people doing these things, they seem pretty stupid. So I can either just buy Bitcoin and hodl it for a decade, or I can spend my entire days looking at charts and trying to understand what the market's going to do next. Well, fuck that.
Exactly.
So obviously the first choice is better.
Yeah.
And I think this is, like I tweeted about this morning, I think people are, to this day, the people who chose the other path, who never understood this sound money perspective and this like absolute scarcity. Yeah, they keep on like looking themselves in the mirror. You know the meme with the guy looking himself in the mirror, like, you're not a shitcoiner, you're open-minded. Like, and they keep on making the same mistake over and over again, and they have no money. And like, and everyone who was a maxi for the last decade, like, well, we're fine. We there's no cost for us to speak the truth.
No,
we're already arrived. Like, so, yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah, same journey for everyone, and everyone who's humble enough to admit that they were wrong are eventually rewarded for it, and everyone who doesn't is punished for it.
Yeah,
because they keep on shitcoining.
I completely agree. Actually, I think it's healthy to have had a short shitcoin phase. There's no better way of learning from your mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the way, it's a harsh teacher, but it's an effective one. And it's not only shitcoin; it's like everything that has to do with responsibility and Bitcoin is a very harsh teacher. Like, if you keep your coins on an exchange, if you fiddle around with your private key, if you take a screenshot of it or something stupid like that, like,
the wallet is gone,
and then zoop, and there's zeros everywhere, and there's no one to blame but yourself. Like, that's what this game is all about.
Yeah, it requires quite a significant recalibration of your mental landscape, though, doesn't it? Because we're so used to living in a world of guardrails. Without any
somewhat dependent on where you came from and like how your upbringing were. I think like redneck with a shotgun has a higher likelihood of understanding Bitcoin earlier. Like, if you had to be self-sovereign already, the learning curve is steeper.
Yes, I think that's completely right. Well, actually, it's interesting you raise that. I've often felt that one of the reasons it was easier for me to understand Bitcoin before a lot of my contemporaries in the UK was because I grew up in two different countries, both of which have effectively collapsed. So my very early childhood was in Syria, in Damascus. We were kicked out of Syria with 48 hours notice to leave the country, literally drop everything and leave. And then Zimbabwe, I spent the rest of my childhood, again, a country with a collapsing currency, where it was very, very difficult to move money cross-border and to get out of the country at all.
No, Zimbabwe is a horrific example. Like, it used to be this quite well-functioning Rhodesia. You can claim it was racist and stuff, but Zimbabwe, there are so many examples of economic illiteracy just destroying the country there.
It's terribly, terribly sad. And people forget the first 10 or 15 years of the Mugabe regime. Zimbabwe remained a well-functioning, wealthy economy with a highly educated population. It was as a kid, it was a great, great place to grow up, and the economic collapse was not driven by external forces. It was effectively a self-inflicted wound. It was an unnecessary, politically engineered collapse. Yeah, which is terribly tragic. So they basically it was called the breadbasket of Africa. Like, and they basically took all the farms from the farm owners, who were usually whites, and gave it to the local population to run. And they, of course, having no experience with running a farm, fucked everything up and just went away. And that's my picture of it. Of course, I'm somewhat biased maybe, but then hyperinflation ensued, and the Zimbabwean, whatever it's called, the dollar.
It's a dollar is worth nothing. Like, it's the one with a trillion zeros, or where a trillion, not a trillion zeros, but with 12 zeros and more, like on the banknotes. It's ridiculous.
I have a picture up on. I used to have it hanging in my bathroom. I found a $2 note that I got when one of my teeth came out when I was 8 years old, I think. So about 1988, 89. And then from just 10 years later, in 2018, I have a 500 billion note, which was roughly the same value. It's just extraordinary. I have them framed together on a piece of paper.
It's insane. And people don't understand what a humanitarian catastrophe inflation is and hyperinflation is. Like, it's really making everyone starve artificially. Like, it's horrible. By the way, I grew up in I spent a couple of years or a couple of months here and a couple of months there during my childhood in Africa, because my father had a career. So I spent like half a year in Mozambique and a couple of months in Tanzania. So I have some experience with that too.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Mozambique is very similar climate to Zimbabwe. Obviously, we're jealous because you have the coastline there. We just had the Kariba Dam. Yeah.
But that also, Mozambique also had a socialist leader at the time, and was quite malfunctioning.
Well, sadly, still is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a bit of a roundabout answer to your question. How did I get into
All right, so that's your Bitcoin story, so to speak. And tell me more about Bitcoin Policy UK.
Sure. So, like I said, so I've given you some of the genesis of it. When we came together to found the organization, I had been working in a fintech company, and we'd been attempting to launch a Bitcoin rewards product at the time. And as part of that, I'd started to do more and more feedback to treasury committees in the UK. Perhaps it's just worth for the international listeners setting out the different bodies in the UK who make laws and regulation. So obviously the key body is Parliament. Parliament has two houses, very much like in the US. We have the House of Commons and the House of Lords, which are roughly equivalent to the House of Representatives and the Senate. The Treasury, fairly obvious. Most countries have got a similar body. They hold the purse strings. What we call HMRC is now His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and that's the tax authority in the UK who levy taxes and sort of make tax regulation. And then the financial regulator in the country, so the equivalent of the SEC in the US, is called the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority. Alongside all of these, we have the central bank, which in the UK is the Bank of England. So various of these bodies have been putting out different requests for consultation in relation to the whole cryptocurrency market over the last few years. And it was in submitting written evidence to these various committees that I realized that, no, as I said earlier, no one was really doing it just for Bitcoin. And I had by this point gone through my brief shitcoin phase and was a hardcore maxi. So I felt there was a bit of a gap in the market there. And coming together after that conference in Edinburgh, Jordan and Jim did a good job of pulling together a bunch of people with similar interests. I reached out to Susie actually because I'd read a really good piece that she wrote in City AM on Bitcoin mining and environmentalism. And we put the organization together with sort of three rough limbs holding up the stool. So the first limb was policy. We wanted to make sure that the policy that was coming out of the UK was as good as it possibly could be, because there was a huge amount of misunderstanding and very poor knowledge basis in the UK. Second was in relation to mining and energy and the environment. Again, you'll remember that was a very significant attack vector being used against Bitcoin. Still is to some degree, but I think less so. And then the third piece was sort of an educational piece. So perhaps on that, we have a couple of teachers on the team who both teach my first Bitcoin in their schools and in clubs. One of the guys uses old miners that we've been raising money to buy. He has been teaching his kids how to take them apart, how to put them back together, how to mine. And they've also been experimenting with various different projects, like turning them into home heaters, using an old S9, for example, with the cloak that you can 3D print. So that's kind of a school effort. On the mining and environmental side, as I say, we've been raising money to buy different miners and looking to effectively create commercial proof of concepts for things like using miners in conjunction with excess solar and wind in industrial sites as heating. So we have a sort of dedicated team of systems engineers and people who have been home mining for a long time working on that. And then the bulk of my own time is spent on policy docs. So writing a lot of very long, boring, detailed documentation. And then
it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
Yes. I actually like it. And so perhaps that's it's one of the pieces of my work I really enjoy. I like just sitting down.
We'll cut that out. We won't. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't publicize that too much.
All right. I'm curious. This Edinburgh conference, I think was Troy there and Jeff maybe and
Jeff was there
and Larry Lepard maybe.
Margot was there. Margot Pyers came.
Oh, yeah. Because I think I was at another conference at the time, at the exact time or the precise time in Prague, the Free Cities conference, and I think we had if this is the correct conference, I think we had a joint call between the conferences where we talked about the Free Madeira organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I so a bunch of the organization were in Edinburgh, and another bunch. Me and Daniel Prince and Nicola Amanen, I think we were in Prague.
I think that's right. And there was a video as well of the meetings in Madeira, right?
Yeah. Well, there was a video call between us two. Yeah. No one was actually on a video call on Madeira, but so it was between Prague and Edinburgh only. Okay, but that was when we had just started this organization and before Bitcoin Atlantis and before like all the retail adoption and everything. So it's been beautiful to see Free Madeira become such a success and like the whole thing. I'm so proud of having been a part of that and like just tagged along with all of these great people doing all this stuff. Has been great.
Well, don't say tagged along. I mean, that is really something to be proud of.
Yeah, maybe I should chest pound a bit more about that, but we'll see. Yeah. So, but it is. I mean, everything in Bitcoin is an experience, right? And you learn something from everything. And now I'm Luke and I are co-organizing this event in Helsinki that you're coming to, by the way. Yes.
Fantastic.
So looking forward to that a lot. And of course, I learned a lot on Madeira. And if I hadn't been there with the Free Madeira organization when that whole thing started, we wouldn't have had half the speakers we have now at Helsinki, I think. And like, and I wouldn't have known half as much about organizing a Bitcoin conference as I now know because of that whole thing. So everything like adds on, and you can just do stuff, and it's fantastic.
That is one of my favorite memes. I forget who started it, but it's really something.
You can just do stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's so true. Like, and people, they hold themselves back. They think they can't just do stuff, but you actually can just do stuff, and then stuff happens. It's great.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, sometimes if you look back over things you've done in your life, I think back to when I was, 19, 20, and I think the huge advantage you have then is that you don't necessarily know that you can't do things, so you just go off and do. But as I've got older, exactly as you say, I find it's instinctively you kind of want maybe you become more risk averse. I don't know. You've got to remind yourself.
Yeah, but my favorite example is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh. Like that guy, he just did stuff with determination, right? And his the remarkable career in all sorts of fields, not only movies, but it's like I think he made most of his money not by acting in movies, but by selling bricks. Like he started a brick company, and that's why he later became a senator and all this stuff, right? And the story is completely absurd. Like moving to the US from Austria, not speaking the language at 16, and being this bodybuilder type with this freak accent, and just doing all that. Like I just love it because it's just refusing to listen to the naysayers and just doing stuff. Of course, like you have to have the balance between self-criticism and just an unapologeticalism, or whatever the word is. Like, but I think like the world would be a better place if people had self-criticism until they're 40 and then drop all of that after 40 and just do stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
That's probably the correct approach.
That's why you're preaching to the choir with Schwarzenegger. I don't know. It's very difficult for me not to mention Schwarzenegger in every podcast I do. I'm a huge fan of his. But, for the very reasons that you've just highlighted, everyone said he couldn't do it. They wanted him to change his name. They wanted him to rebrand from Schwarzenegger.
And now it's super iconic. Like,
yeah, exactly. He turned his accent into an advantage rather than a disadvantage.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the very early cuts of, in fact, the theatrical cut of Hercules in New York, where they dubbed him with like a slight American accent.
I have seen that some clips of that. Yeah. And Hercules in New York.
It's terrible,
but it's terrible in all the best ways.
Yes. In fact, I don't recommend people watch the whole film, but there's a wonderful scene when he fights a bear that's escaped from the zoo. Do you know the one I'm talking about? It's literally a man in a bear suit, kind of just going.
Obviously, much smaller than Arnold.
Yeah, he just leaps out of this carriage that he's traveling in with a girl, and essentially pounds it to death.
No, I love Arnold and his career. Like Conan is also early and also hilarious. And I think the movies actually said that, like, there's somewhere in there where the movies like are actually good and not just ironically good.
And I think
definitely. I think that starts around Commando, which is fucking hilarious. It's such a ride, that movie. And then, of course, my favorite is probably Predator. Like, I just think that movie is once in a...
it's flawless. You could release that today and it would still...
It's lightning in a bottle, though. Yeah. And of course, the first Terminator movie and the second one, too. Like, those two are just, like, almost flawless movies, especially the first. I like the first one because that's true magic, like from a nothing budget, making a classic like that. It's so good.
Yeah, as a 1-2 punch, I think the first Terminator is technically a better film, but I'd probably rewatch the second one more frequently.
Yeah, and that's ahead of its time too. Like those, the CGI effects may look a bit dated, but they look much better than some of the AI slop that they churn out nowadays.
Well, I think the key thing is that each of those, what's actually important in each of them is not necessarily the effects, but the story and the themes and the characters.
Yeah. And it sort of made sense in the first two. Well, time travel movies rarely make sense at all because they can't. But for being they have these internal rules for that universe, and they didn't break them during the first two. But everything became just a parody of it, basically, in the later sequels.
I read a really interesting film school paper on the time travel theory in each of them. Actually, apparently the first one and the second one, while they're internally self-consistent, they each have a different theory of time travel. So the first one is a closed loop universe, so everything has already happened. So obviously, Kyle has already come back and Skynet has already been defeated and you can't change anything. So it's a deterministic world. And then the second is more of a branching universe theory, where you go back in one timeline and then you change something, and then you start another one.
Yeah, maybe there's a subtle nod to free will existing or not there.
Yes. Well, back to your original point, you can just do stuff, no faith but what we make.
No.
You are, looping back to your original point, you can be in charge of your own destiny if you stand up and do things.
Here's a funny parallel here. I love that this conversation just went out of the window and somewhere completely different. But if you compare Terminator 1 to Terminator 2, I would say Terminator 1 reflects that you objectively cannot have free will, simply because of the arrow of time being in one direction. So the neuron firing off has to precede the decision to do something. Therefore, free will cannot exist, like objectively, unless there is such a thing as time travel. If you are going to influence what your brain does you would have to be able to time travel back and change the decision. Otherwise, it can't work, right?
Interesting.
You're following the logic?
Yeah, it's a completely deterministic universe.
It has to be if there's no such thing as time travel. However, more and more physicists cling on to the idea of the multiverse being not like non-debatable. It's actually a thing. It's not an interpretation of quantum mechanics. It's the actual reality because everything points to that. And also, quantum particles can be entangled, not only over space, but in time. At least that's a theory. I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say too much here, but I think that's not only a theory, but that it's actually provable that they can influence something a microsecond earlier, something being in this superposition state. The quantum mechanics is weird. But so what I'm getting to here is that maybe Terminator 2 is like Terminator 1 admits that the universe has to be deterministic from an objectivist point of view. But Terminator 2 realizes that you have no option but to have free will from a subjective standpoint.
Yes, exactly right. You have to, even if you do live in a deterministic universe, you have to live your life on the assumption that you have the opportunity and the ability to change the future.
Even more so if it is deterministic, because you can't do anything about feeling that way.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. So whether free will actually exists or not doesn't matter, because if it doesn't, then nothing matters. We can't do anything about anything, and so neither can anyone else. It's just a ride, and just enjoy it. And like, sure, you can have that. I think you can probably be an optimistic nihilist in that world, and like, but who knows? Maybe you can. If you don't have free will, you can't be anything. You can't choose anything. So you have no choice but to have it. Ironically enough.
No.
And that's Terminator 2.
Yeah. Yes, and that's where they should have stopped.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Like every other sequel is crap. Buongiorno, or as the Americans would say, buongiorno, from beautiful Lugano. We here at the Bitcoin Infinity Show and the Bitcoin Infinity Academy think that you should take Bitcoin security seriously. And you do that by getting yourself a hardware wallet and do some inheritance planning. And how do you do that? Well, you go to bitbox.swiss and check out their hardware wallets, especially the new Nova edition, the Bitbox Nova, which has iPhone support and the latest security certification and everything. So go to bitbox.swiss and check out their website. Use code Infinity for a discount. Also go to the Bitcoin Advisor for some good advice on Bitcoin inheritance planning. They have a great multi-sig solution. And say hi from us. Good luck with storing your Bitcoin. And one day you might be able to buy yourself a beautiful house, such as this one. You just have to, stack, hodl for a decade or two, and you could move here.
Yes, I'm at the point where my children are just old enough to begin to be indoctrinated with these things. So obviously I've started to teach them about Bitcoin, and I want them to grow up in a world, actually segueing slightly away from one sci-fi giant to another one. Douglas Adams has a wonderful quote that I dug up recently about we were thinking about why is it so difficult for so many people to understand and to grok Bitcoin. And in the Salmon of Doubt, Adam says, if something exists in the world when you're born, then it's completely normal. If something's invented between when you're 15 and 25, it's very exciting and you can probably get a career in it. And if something is invented after you're 30, it is wrong and against the natural order of things. Which
yes, there was a joke in Sweden a couple of years back when the artist Avicii became a postal stamp. So the joke was that everyone above 30 asked, "Who the fuck is Avicii?" And everyone below 30 asked, "What the fuck is a postal stamp?" Like,
oh, oh,
and
I
think
good.
that is very good.
Oh,
and speaking of Douglas Adams, in The Hitchhiker somewhere, there's this giant spaceship of bureaucrats that crash into Earth and start using leaves as currency, right? And
it's the second. It's the second ship, isn't it? The Golgafrantians.
Yeah, exactly.
And oh my god, yes, that's such a good and that was a trick, wasn't it? Because the first they put all of the people that they thought were unnecessary onto that ship, and then they had pretended that they were all launching from the planet, and they'd actually got rid of them.
Yeah, exactly. They were just throwing away the garbage.
Yeah, the middle managers, the telephone sanitizers, the call center operators.
Yeah,
and they're using leaves as money. And that's just a throwaway line in the book, isn't it?
Yes, sort of, but it's so telling. And it's I remember the thing about the Jatrovids of Vitvodel 5, the small blue aliens with 50 arms each. The first civilization to invent the spray deodorant before the wheel.
Yes, actually, it's interesting you mentioned Adams there, because there are several places where he writes about money, the nature of money. Do you remember the Ningis and the Pooh? Again, it's another throwaway idea. So the Ningis were it was very difficult to trade on that planet, because although the concept was quite simple, it was 9 Ningis made 1 Pooh, but a Ningi is a 3-mile wide triangle made of rubber. So no one had ever collected enough in order to save up 1 Pooh.
Oh, that's great.
And that's another. I mean, just there, you've got 2 great jokes. One on the quantity money theory in terms of leaves, and the other on the velocity of money. No one can ever really trade. Well, unless you do it in a Yapstone kind of way.
Yeah. Which is not final settlement.
No.
But just
very hard to achieve final settlement with a 9-mile wide triangle of rubber.
Another thing, like I reread The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy like 5 times in my teens, but I haven't read it since. So like maybe I should revisit it, like, because it's so good. I remember the first sentence from what's the other book called? Like Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and the first line is my favorite opening line of any book ever, and it is no coincidence that no language on earth has ever come up with the expression "as pretty as an airport."
Oh, that's brilliant. I've forgotten that. I haven't read Dirk Gently since I was 14 or 15, I think. Hitchhikers I reread quite regularly, but haven't done for about 15 years.
I should too. I should put it in the calendar.
Yes. I've been trying to get my elder daughter to read Hitchhikers, but she's got distracted with other books, and I will try again.
What is that about Vogon poetry being the 3rd worst in the universe? And like the 2nd worst is something that your ears start bleeding and then you explode if you listen to it. And the worst is written by, and then there's the name and address of a bad poet lives close by.
Yeah, who I think was real.
Yeah. It certainly seems that way.
I think it was someone that Adams knew.
Yeah. Hilarious. He wrote a couple of sketches for Monty Python as well.
No way, I didn't know that.
He did. He was friends with Graham Chapman, I think. And
funny.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a great loss.
Yeah.
Died on a running machine, didn't he? In 2001.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is why I never go on a running machine.
No, we are Bitcoiners because we hate the treadmill.
Yes, exactly. No, the only cardio I do is walking.
Yeah, same here. Almost. Well, I go for a run sometimes, but not on a treadmill. Never.
No. I'm so heavy now that if I try running, my knees begin to creak and collapse underneath me. But
were you a Terry Pratchett's fan too?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yes.
You also, I hope?
Yeah. I didn't read all of them, but almost.
Oh. One of the things I'm most jealous about, my wife met him and got one of my books signed for him, signed by him, but I wasn't able to go. And obviously, he's been dead for 10 years now.
Yeah, what a loss. I mean, what a brilliant man. And one of the best quote machines in history. Like, sometimes it's better to light a flamethrower than curse the darkness. Like, or
Well, hopefully that's why we're here.
yeah. What's the other one? Teach a man to make a fire and warm him for a day. Set the man on fire and warm him for the rest of his life.
I mean, he's just phenomenal.
And there's another one, like, there's a rumor going around that I found God. I find this highly unlikely, since I can't even find my keys, and there is empirical evidence that they exist.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to go to his memorial in London.
Oh, fantastic.
I was amazing. There was an open ballot, so you could apply to attend. I was unsuccessful twice, and then third time lucky. I got 2 seats right on the top of the auditorium, but it was an incredible event. So his daughter was there speaking, his agent, many of his friends.
Fantastic.
And there was a small book that was published, that was handed out to everyone who came, and no further editions will ever be published. Inside it says first and only edition. And it was full of quotes and essays he'd written, and a piece from his daughter, and the eulogy from his funeral.
I know there was a biography written by one of his assistants. I started reading it, but I never finished it for some reason. I think I didn't like it enough.
That yet. By Rob Wilkins, I think.
Yeah.
Who helped him with a lot of his books towards the end of his life.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know if you saw. I think it's a quote it's either from Guards or from Night Watch about.
Love those.
It's the Vimes boots theory. It's why it's so hard to get ahead if you're already poor. So, Vimes had to buy a pair of boots every 3 months because he bought cheap boots that were made of cardboard, which let the water in. But if he'd been wealthy, he would have bought one good pair of boots, which would have lasted him for years. And so the net result was that over a period of years, he spent far more on boots than a rich man would, and his feet were still wet.
It's great.
When the man was a genius.
No, and it is very expensive to be poor, especially in a fiat system. You're punished all the time for being poor, and if you're being shit rich, you're being rewarded for it, and you get all the cheap loans, and you can be Michael Saylor and buy all the bitcoins. So, like, it's a flaw of the fiat system and not of Bitcoin. Like,
yes,
very interesting.
Exactly right.
Speaking of that book series, the Guards thing and Vimes, there's one called Feet of Clay.
Yes, I love that one.
That has a quote in the beginning. He describes a bakery, and the baker has a little placard on the door that says, "I'm a baker man because I need the dough."
Oh,
need with a K. And
he just had tremendous fun with so many of the things in his books are just little throwaway, and yet at the same time, he'll make you laugh, and then the next page he'll gut punch you with something unbelievably emotional that completely took you by surprise,
or unbelievably critical of modern society. Like, there's something like the way he describes when insurance is invented in Ankh-Morpork, and the day after the whole city is aflame.
Yes, they burn down the broken drum, which is then rebuilt as the mended drum, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, you remember this way better than I do, but no, it's great. And this is not surprising, because usually with Bitcoiners, you figure out that you have the same taste in a lot of things, and Pratchett fits the bill for sure.
He does. I think that's quite an interesting observation, and it's quite encouraging in a way. And you must find this when you go to conferences, that you may come from extraordinarily different backgrounds or different places, but there are some key elements of your personality or of your interests or what you care about or what you think is important.
Yeah,
that means that you can make bonds very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, that's I have some quote about that on the Orange Pill app website, I think, where they used a quote of mine about exactly that, about how you can skip the social the small talk and talk about the weather, and you can go straight into like deep philosophical discussions, or or discussions about Douglas Adams. Like, yeah.
So I'm afraid I've rambled a little bit about movies and books. I don't know how strictly you want to keep the topic on Bitcoin, and
doesn't matter.
Not good.
To be honest, it's refreshing to talk about something else. We did a pod with Peter McCormack on Madeira, where we decided beforehand to not talk about Bitcoin at all.
Oh,
because both me and him were so we were interviewing him, and we were both super bored with talking about Bitcoin with everyone. So we just talked about 90s rock and roll bands. And
Excellent.
That was good.
I'm not so good on 90s rock and roll bands, but I'm very good on fantasy fiction and 1980s films. So
fantastic. Yeah. Have you seen that meme with the diagrams about movie trilogies and which sequel is good? And
yes,
and it's pretty accurate.
That's very good. Like Lord of the Rings is pretty much on par.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, the original, is low,
Star
high,
Wars
lower.
Yeah. So 8, 10, 7 or something, right?
Have you seen the XKCD cartoon with a diagram of how to make people feel old using movie release dates?
Oh, no.
It's both funny and depressing at the same time. It was also from 2011, I think, so it's even worse now. But it says, if someone is, 20, you say, do you realize that The Matrix was released, not this millennium, but the previous one?
Yeah.
And then it gets worse until the one that really hit me was The Little Mermaid. Did you know that The Little Mermaid was released closer to the moon landings than the present day?
No, but that doesn't surprise me, because that's still 80s, right? It's end of the
89,
80s.
I think.
Yeah.
So quite a lot closer to the moon landings than the present day.
Yeah, and that's like everything before your birth, you have a skewed perspective of it. Like I figured that out later in life. So like, because for instance, the moon landings or the Beatles or whatever Godfather movies, they are much closer in time to anything that exists now. And all like the fact that more time passed between the Star Wars, last of the Star Wars prequel and the Disney bullshit Star Wars than between the original trilogy and the first of the prequels.
No way. I suppose yeah, 83 was Return of the Jedi, wasn't it? And then 99 was Phantom Menace.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds correct. And then between Revenge of the Sith and what's it called? I don't remember the name of the
Force
rapist
Awakens.
movie. Force Awakens. And yes, Force Awakens is when is that?
2015.
It's like 2017, maybe.
That was 2015 was Force Awakens.
2015.
I think.
So am I lying here or am I correct?
I think you'd be correct if you saw it from Phantom Menace. So Phantom Menace.
So it's from the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still, it's weird.
That is weird. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this with music the other day. So I love 80s music as well. So I play it to my kids. I suddenly realized that if my mum had been doing the equivalent to me, it's like she would have been playing music from the 1950s to me as a kid in the 80s, and sometimes even worse. Some of the stuff would have been 1940s music.
Yeah, that puts things into perspective. And yeah, 1940s and the 80s and now, like the 80s are the middle of the road there.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
It's funny. Well, although sometimes you wonder if, although the pace of technological change has increased, I wonder if the pace of cultural change hasn't been as fast as between I think culturally in some ways the 80s feel closer than the 40s would have felt to the 80s.
Yeah, because like I think like 80s, 90s, that's sort of where I hate to say this, but that's sort of where it all stops and everything is just references to that.
Yes.
Like because it's sort of like okay, so here's the theory. Like when the internet happened, one of the first things to go down was the record industry, right? Because they invented the MP3 and that was fucked. So but the last remnants of CDs that were actually sold were like Smurf hits and like music for idiots, basically, and kids. things you could still sell, like whatever boomers and kids bought. And it's still like that today. But and that same pattern plays out in everything else too. So like right now, like the only ones consuming mainstream media anymore are boomers. Like, but they have a lot of money, so they spend money on it in these old models and stuff. And like, I see this playing out the same way in everything else.
Yeah, that's interesting.
These legacy things, they just cling on for so long because nothing else has a footing in. And by the way, where I was getting with the CDs was like Hollywood has definitely got that pattern. Nowadays, everything is it's a copy of a copy of a copy. There's nothing original. Like there's not a single original movie idea anymore. Everything is just a franchise and someone trying to build a cinematic universe or some bullshit out of. Well, the Marvel movies were like the latest but it's not really original either, right?
No.
But it's at least its own thing. But everything has been done before. Like Predator, for instance, there's a new Predator movie and it looks awful and it will not be as good as the original because that was lightning in a bottle. Like they're rebooting fucking Ghostbusters, which is like the only reason Ghostbusters was good at all is because it's a lightning in a bottle. It's 4 comedians very funny together, and the whole the ghosts and the car and the concepts around it, that was not the important thing.
No,
about
you're
them.
right.
It's just
they're
the
irrelevant in a way.
Yeah, they're completely irrelevant. So and you could say that about Star Wars too. It's good because Harrison Ford is in it. It's not good because it's this fucking because of lightsabers and crap. Like it's good because they had chemistry, and you can't replicate that. So no, it's weird. So what I'm saying is that everything, like clever people don't care about that stuff anymore. They care about other things. Like you, I mean, we're doing other stuff now, and this is they're selling movie tickets to idiots. Like,
yes, I mean it's very sad. Occasionally, if you look, I read an article the other day about the top 10 movies in I think it was one of the summer months in 1990, and it's extraordinary to go down that list and to see the kind of stuff that was being made. You had movies being made on a relatively small budget, but they were good one-shot action thrillers or a suspense film. Actually, Ghost was on the list. So you have unique stories that were made for not a huge amount of money and weren't trying to create a cinematic universe.
No.
But I think a huge amount of it is simply because firstly, it's very, very difficult to get a film made nowadays. And in order to get budget approval from the studio, you need to have a surefire financial model for the amount of money it's going to make. And until recently, a good way of predicting that was for it to be based on an existing intellectual property or a sequel. Because then the guys who are making the monetary decisions are not the creative people who want to make the films.
No.
They're just bankrupt. And if they can see a model saying, all Marvel films will hit between this level and that level, then they're much more likely to green light the approval. And I think that's a terrible shame. And maybe AI is going to enable people, because there will still be good filmmakers out there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll enable those kind of smaller budget films to come back and to... Actually, talking of original films, did you ever see a film called Monsters? I think it was by the guy who directed The Creator. Is it Gareth Jenkins, someone like that?
No, I didn't.
That was a really, really good modern film, actually. What's modern is I suppose it's about a decade old now.
Yeah.
I'm so old now. But he did the CGI for that himself at home.
Oh, really?
And it's a really good story. It's like a sort of cross between a survival film, a post-apocalyptic film, and Apocalypse Now. It's like two people sailing up a river, like a war correspondent and someone he's accompanying. And they say they're traveling through these like post-apocalyptic wastelands that have been laid waste by these monsters. Really, really good piece of sci-fi.
Oh, cool. To check it out. Yeah, I found it on IMDb. There was another Monsters from 2022 too, but this is from 2010, so I think that's it.
Yeah, the early one.
There's a handful of original movies that I really like from around the 2010s. Like what's it called? Nightcrawler is a really good one.
Oh yes, I remember that one. Did you see District 9?
Yeah, love it.
That was a great one.
Yeah, unfortunately, that guy has not made a better movie since. It's like his first big movie, and it's the best one by far. But I love that movie. It's hilarious and scary and like action packed. It's just great
and moving as well. Actually, by the end,
moving. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. But that's like 20 years old now, right?
Yeah,
it should be.
Yeah, it is.
And from that time, like There Will Be Blood was an excellent movie. Like the Coen brothers were still doing good shit. Like the No Country for Old Men came out around the time, I think.
Yes, similar time.
Yeah.
What was the Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt film?
Oh, that was good.
That was good.
The Tomorrow thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was great.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. I hadn't seen that, so I saw that like a couple of months back, and I really enjoyed that one. It's a really good one.
Yeah. See, those are all examples of sort of one shot where there's an interesting story to be told with good characters and interesting themes. So, I mean, I don't think it's a question of human creativity having disappeared. It's a question of the avenue for it to be expressed or to find its way out into the world has been shut.
Exactly. What was that one? Ex Machina? That was a good one too.
That was good. Alex Garland, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Alicia Vikander as a robot.
Yes.
No, I love that. A small movie, like 3 actors or 4, like that's it in a very confined space. I like that. No, of course, and AI, like people worry about AI suddenly becoming sentient and stuff, and the whole Skynet thing. But I think there's a misinterpretation of what it is. Like humans act because we want to remove a felt uneasiness. This is like the basis for Austrian economics and praxeology. And a machine can never feel uneasy, so it can never be its own master. It can only be a slave. Like it's a slave to whatever we prompt it to do. So it's not the machines. Like they cannot be sentient. Like they cannot have agency because they cannot feel uneasy. That's my theory.
Or desire.
Or desire. Which is basically the same thing. Yes. Desire is just feeling very uneasy, so you passionately pursue something.
Yes, you want to check. The interesting next step, I wonder, is that if you accept that we are essentially extraordinarily complex machines who are bound by the laws of the physical world, is there a point at which silicon-based machines could achieve a similar level of complexity and get to a point where they also have desires and are needs? I
don't think so. Like from what I know of the research, and I know a couple of people have worked with AIs, like and actually built them. Specifically, Alex Svetsky, who built the Satoshi's whatever was called like an AI, basically like a ChatGPT clone, but fed with Austrian economics and Bitcoin literature.
Spirit of Satoshi, isn't it?
The Spirit of Satoshi. Yeah. So I'm proud to have my books in the AI, and it comes up with all sorts of things. It's fascinating how they work, because you have to feed it questions and answers. You cannot just feed it whatever the information on the internet is. Like you have to rewrite that as a question and answer. And I guess the AI itself can do that at some point. But it gets exponentially more costly for the AI to do certain stuff at a certain point. So like everything is a trade-off. And you basically what happens if you compromise the all the classical machine abilities, like being able to calculate stuff fast and whatever machines do better than us. The more of those are the trade-offs. So if you want it to be more general and more like a human being, like then it actually becomes like a human being. It trades away the other stuff. So there's it's very interesting. He calls it. He had a fantastic word for it, and it's midwit obsolescence technology, because it removes the people in the middle of the bell curve.
That's really funny. So you just left with the left and right.
Yeah, it's great.
who probably already agree with each other.
Yeah, because of all the bullshit jobs, like bureaucratic jobs, they get replaced by AI at an accelerating pace. Like because you can tell the AI to write a contract for you, or to fill in a tax form or whatever. All the all the lubrication company bullshit. I call them lubrication companies, or every company that works with something not actually producing anything, any real good or service, but they do provide a service in making the giant government dildo go in a little easier when they inevitably rapes you. Like, that's a lubrication company. So accountancy,
excellent.
for instance, and so it makes lubrication easier. That's what the AI does, I guess.
Brilliant. Yes. And of course, in respect of people who do actually make things and do things, it's extraordinary to compare the optimization of a machine like a human at being able to dance, for example, or play football.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 3 billion years worth of evolution that have optimized us for being able to play football, and the number of calculations your brain will be doing watching the arc of a ball come through the air and know exactly where it's going to land and what to do when it lands. The amount of power and research that we would need to put into building a machine that could play football even as well as the worst human footballer, kind of not really worth it.
No, exactly. It's the trade-off. I mean, there's a theory that the only reason we have such a big prefrontal cortex is because we're bipedal the way we are and walk standing up.
That's interesting.
Because that's because of what you say, because there requires all of that calculation to just balance yourself and not fall over all the time.
Yeah, walking is extremely difficult.
Yeah, especially when chewing gum at the same time. Like, there's the multitasking. Like, fuck that.
If you're Gerald Ford, that remained challenging well into middle age, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did read, I think it was Nick Bostrom's book, Superintelligence, for a few years ago. He talked about the ability to emulate neural processes in syncopated time. So you might, if you were able to run the processes at a very, very elevated rate, you might be able to replicate some of the evolutionary processes that have taken us billions of years to optimize for in a much shorter period of time. But I don't know if that's even theoretically possible, let alone physically possible.
No, it's a fascinating thought, but it sounds like one of those, like, quantum computers, life on Mars, interstellar travel, and like virtual reality. All of these things have been like they're headlines for some popular science magazines, right?
Yes.
So that's what they are. You find them at some popular book in the airport in the science section, but that's about it. Never happens.
Well, one of my favorite ever satirical articles, they say about quantum computing, we're always about to crack it.
Yeah.
There's a satirical newspaper in the UK called the Daily Mash. One of the best articles ever is a picture of a printer. And it says, newsflash, scientists believe we are only 10 years away from a fully functioning personal printer.
That's very true.
It's everyone who's ever used a printer can sympathize with that.
Yeah. No, they're horrible machines, and they're sort of designed to break down, and designed to, like, the printer is almost free. The cartridges or the ink costs a lot. Like, that's always the thing.
And I like to think that I'm not a complete technical Luddite. I cannot, for the life of me, troubleshooting my printer. I probably spend more time doing that than anything else technical. Yeah. It's absolutely extraordinary. And you find the same? It's
absolutely. And I think, printer repair guy is probably a very lucrative business venue. Like, if you can be the printer repair guy in an area, then you're probably set for life.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if I was, that would be like number one on my list, that they're actually very simple machines, but their business model is you need to have the machines are simple, but there are deeply buried codecs in there that only Hewlett-Packard have access to.
I've heard a conspiracy theory about printers. I don't know how accurate this is, but that you cannot copy a dollar bill, for instance.
Ooh.
Because there's more about copy machines, or you can't scan them because they there's some rule somewhere then that they have to manufacture them so that you can't.
That's interesting. I might test that. I've got a flatbed scanner on mine. I mean, it probably won't work. So,
money printing.
Well, we don't need to scan dollar bills to print them. You just go and borrow money from your bank, and there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
It's the Jerome Powell quote, isn't it? We print it digitally.
Yeah.
When was that interview from? It's about 5 years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I love the word digital, or rather, I hate the word digital, because like if something is described as digital something, it's usually the wrong interpretation of it. Like calling Bitcoin a digital currency, for instance, it's like it's missing all the points.
Well, what's interesting you say that. Certainly in the UK, we've seen a lot of the obsession with central bank digital currency, I think, has arisen because the Bank of England has thought that people like Bitcoin because it is
digital.
It's based on computers, it's digital. And the point we've made in our submissions throughout is that, Bitcoin only happens to have a digital element to it. What's really interesting about it is the fact that it may or may not be digital is entirely incidental to its other properties, which are much more interesting and much more profound.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of my favorite videos on YouTube is the video of that guy hashing with pen and paper. Have you seen? You must have seen that one.
I've seen that. Yeah.
That blew my mind when I first saw it happening. I mean, I don't know what his hash rate is.
No, but this is at the core of the biggest misconceptions about Bitcoin, and why we're having a debate now between core and knots. I would say that is related to that, because like everything in Bitcoin is first and foremost like a person. Like so, a Bitcoin miner is not an ASIC running an algorithm. It's a person who buys an ASIC and chooses to plug it in and start and run the software and run the algorithm. The algorithm is just a tool. That's like saying that the screwdriver put the screw in the wall. No, the guy with the screwdriver put it in the wall. Like
that's very true.
And that's true for absolutely everything in Bitcoin, which is also why the Satoshis are not on the internet. They're in people's heads. And this is like when this struck me a couple of years back, and I was like once again mind blown by the whole concept of money being information. Like it's so profound. It's just a part of the human being. So the fact that you and I are Bitcoiners means that we're friends. Like very literally, we have a bond. We're part of a network. We're part of the same organism, even because of this. Yeah. Because every private key is just a secret kept from other people. The only reason that you say that you own a Bitcoin is because you know the location or you know the private key. You know a secret that unlocks the ability to move the Satoshis.
Yeah, and it's the combination of the wetware and the hardware and the software that make it all work.
Yes, but the hardware and the software, my point is that they're just tools. It's like this guns don't kill people, people do. And
it's miners, extraordinary.
Yeah, miners don't create Bitcoin, people do. Like it's there's another misconception, because miners produce blocks and not Bitcoins. Like the Satoshis, we permit miners, we node runners and users of the network permit miners to give themselves Satoshis for securing the network for us. Like miners do not find Bitcoin. They get paid in Bitcoin to find blocks.
Well, question for you, and I don't know the answer to this. When the Coinbase transaction happened and the block reward is delivered into the wallet of the miner, did that Bitcoin already exist, or is it created at that time?
That's a philosophical question. In a way, it is created at that time, but the fact that it's permitted by the network to be created at that time means that it's always existed. So did Bitcoin exist before 2009? Yes, but the hash rate was 0.
Yes.
So it's always existed. And that's absolutely 100% true. All the numbers are just a way of expressing stuff. So at the end of so numbers is a way for human beings to communicate something. And we use numbers to make the Bitcoin code happen, cryptography and programming and all of this. It's just numbers. It's just ones and zeros, all of it. So we use that binary information converted into data, which is like data, which is binary numbers converted into information, which is data interpreted in a certain way, unlocked an ability for human beings to act with and interact with one another in a way that punishes aggression and rewards cooperation. So in my definition, when someone nowadays asks me what is Bitcoin, I say it's an agreement between people on a fixed set of rules. That's my simplest explanation and the most accurate one I have. And the reason we agree on this particular set of rules instead of the rules of Monero or Ethereum or the dollar is that this set of rules is set up in such a way that it's more expensive to try to cheat the rules, to try to break the rules than to just obey them. So it's actually literally the rules without rulers. But even the 21 million limit, that is just there because we think it is. Like we find the likelihood that the entire network will deem it a good idea to change that number so unlikely that we can act as if it was a real thing.
Yeah, I agree.
But none of it is real. It's just numbers. And it's just an agreement that we're not going to fuck this up. So the biggest threat to Bitcoin is Bitcoiners, because we are Bitcoin. We are the same thing. We're not all Satoshi. We're all Satoshis. We're all the part of the same organism.
That's really interesting to hear you say that, because recently I've been having more meetings with sort of institutions who are very confused by this.
Oh yes, this was supposed to be my third question, but we went on all this tangents. All right,
go
on.
I've been using a very similar explanation to them, as in you have why would you want to invest value into Bitcoin? And a lot of their questions are, well, why can't someone come along and change the rules or make a better Bitcoin? And so my explanation in response to that question has actually been very similar to what you've just laid out there, in that it's a network of decision makers who have agreed on a set of rules, at which set of rules is extraordinarily difficult to change and can't be changed by a small subset of the people who use the rule set, because otherwise, effectively, the network is forked off. And if a subset of people want to agree on a different set of rules, then that set of rules no longer applies to the original system of which they were once a part. So as long as they remain part of the initial system, then there's agreement on that rule set, and you can therefore have confidence that the value you have put into that rule set will remain there.
Exactly. I mean, the rules are set up in such a way so that if you follow them, you will be rewarded for doing so. And that means that, sure, if you don't believe in Bitcoin, like if you don't think this will work long term, or if you think it's just another cryptocurrency or all of this stuff, then you can be incentivized to just try to abuse the system for short-term fiat gains, which is what I think is happening with the spammers. Like, I think that's what they're doing. They're not Bitcoiners. In my opinion, they are not Bitcoiners, because they wouldn't be doing what they're doing if they were. Bitcoiners are the ones who and like, this is not to pick a side in the core versus not debate. That's not what the point I'm getting through here. But because you can come to the whatever conclusion you want. It's not up to me to try to say that this is correct and this is not. That's not my point. My point is that the scam itself is still a scam, regardless of your approach of how to tackle the scam. And it's very crucial to admit that, because if we think that Bitcoin is something else than money, then the whole house of cards breaks down, because the only thing valuable in it to the system itself is the Satoshi. The Bitcoin, the system runs on Satoshis. It doesn't run on JPEGs or dollars or whatever. It runs on people actually believing that the Satoshi is valuable. This is the only thing that makes the whole system valuable. So anything that's not that is detrimental to the system to a certain extent, even if the magnitude of the damage can be debated. But if you don't think this is a monetary network, you misunderstood what the thing is. In my opinion,
I think even if the system can withstand the spamming, which I believe it will, it's still an unpleasant introduction of extraneous data into a system which should be a monetary one.
Exactly. It's people using something for something else than its intended purpose. And by doing so, showing their true colors and showing that they didn't really understand the true purpose in the first place.
Yeah.
I will go so far.
I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, good. So you had a meeting with in Parliament, right?
Yes. Actually, sorry, we've been
this is where I was supposed to go with this conversation, but yeah,
no worries. Well, it's been a fun talk. So maybe just very quickly on our Parliament meeting, like I mentioned, I've been meeting a lot of different people who are unfamiliar with Bitcoin, and I think if I had to summarize what the key problem in the UK in legal and regulatory terms is, it's a failure to distinguish between Bitcoin and everything else. And partly I have some sympathy with that, in that a lot of these people are non-technical and they view two things really. They've grown up in a world of digital abundance, by which I mean that they assume that everything digital can be easily copied and replicated. And I think that habit of mind carries across into any form of digital representation of value.
This is true. This is why I don't like the word digital, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a very good point.
Sorry for interrupting again, but this is actually the thing that made me interested in Bitcoin at all. Something on the internet that couldn't be, something in computers that couldn't be copied. Intrigued me so much. Like, how the fuck can that be? That's a time machine, like time machine level of impossible invention.
Yes.
Like, how can that be? And it took me a long time to figure out that the reason that it can't be copied is because it's not on the computers, it's in people's heads. That is the explanation.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Every single person who is writing these laws and regulations assumes that things on computers can be easily copied.
Yes, which is why they think Bitcoin is a scam.
Yes, exactly right. And why they think that it's produced out of thin air. And unfortunately, edging them slowly towards the understanding that it's not is very time-consuming and very lengthy. And so, conscious of time, so I won't spend a huge amount of time on this, but one of the techniques we use in communicating with them is to use existing examples in that they're familiar with, and then try and map those onto the way that Bitcoin functions. So the analogies are obviously imperfect. Most analogies, as you know, that we use to describe Bitcoin are imperfect. The one that we've been focusing on with in the House of Lords and with the MPs who were there as well is one of risk profile. So you remember the beginning of the chat, I mentioned the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority. Yep. Their message to the market in the UK, to all retail consumers, is that all crypto assets, Bitcoin included, are all equally worthless and they all are equally risky. And I've written quite a lot on this and sent it into the FCA, and I used as the most egregious example I could think of was a unicorn fart dust. So that's a shitcoin that runs, I think, on Solana. But the FCA tells me as a retail investor in the UK, Bitcoin and unicorn fart dust are both equally worthless. So go ahead, and if you want to invest in them, you should be prepared to lose all your money. Now, the FCA has got several different mandates given to it by government. One is a growth mandate, and one is a mandate to prevent customer harm. And our strong messaging, both to MPs and to Lords, is that by the FCA telling the market that unicorn fart dust is just as good a buy, basically, as Bitcoin, they are egregiously failing in their duty to communicate to the market the different risk profiles of these different kinds of assets. And so the analogy we've been using in communicating with the Lords and with MPs is that we already differentiate between different kinds of companies. And that's, most of them are quite familiar with the idea of a listed company that is on, traded on the London Stock Exchange or on the NSE, for example, on the NASDAQ. And then other companies can be started by me in my bedroom or my kitchen. I can hold all of the shares. I can make all of the rules. I can be the director on that company. Now, those two different examples of companies have got very different risk profiles, and our current company law doesn't allow me to sell shares in the more risky company that I started from my kitchen to the public. And that's a relatively easy example for them to understand. And then when we map that onto Bitcoin, we say, Bitcoin has a $2 trillion market cap. It has a rule set that's extraordinarily difficult to change. It has a network that's supported by thousands of nodes and miners around the world. And as you've been saying, individual humans who don't want the rule set to be changed in a particular way. So you can have a relatively high degree of certainty that things like the 21 million cap won't be changed arbitrarily. However, with Unicorn Fart Dust, if it's a meme coin that I've created over the space of a weekend, where I hold the majority of the coins, that doesn't offer you the same degree of security and stability. And the meeting last week was the first time where I think one of the lords had actually got it, because he came back to that point after I'd given my evidence, and he said, I like that. And he said, I think we could develop a set of protocols that kind of differentiate between these different assets. And I mean, if it happens, it will probably take years, but that was literally the first chink of light I think we've seen in an understanding that the digital asset market space is not completely uniform, and there's a lot of crap in it. And we need to focus on the blue chip asset, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it's going to take ages for them to wrap their heads around that. But it all boils down to like value being subjective, and there is no intrinsic value, right? To me, the FEC has absolutely no value. Like I don't care what they say or think or do at all. Like they cannot affect me, other than very indirectly, I guess. But it's still like the whole notion of an institution deciding for people what is worth something and what is not worth something it's by its very nature vulgar to me, because I think that means you take responsibility away from the consumer and you give it to this or that institution. And the thing is, consumer responsibility is what makes companies and businesses sound. If that is the process that pushes civilization forward and makes everything better. It's that consumers have to take responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah.
That means when consumers get hurt, not butthurt, but when they get hurt, they are supposed to be angry with that company and go to another company and buy another product, so that company that fucked them it goes out of business. That's the whole point. Like, but this point seems to be lost on these institutional people, bureaucrats that think they know better.
It does.
Planners, all of them.
I like to think that it started from a place of good intentions, but it's become distorted and nerfed, I think, in a way.
Everything starts from good intentions.
Unfortunately. Yeah, so you end up in a place where, as you say, no one has any responsibility for anything. And like we were saying earlier, the best way of learning is to touch the stove.
Yeah. live and let live. Like that's, and also like you get what you pay for. So if you pay society to be unproductive by putting up security nets everywhere, no matter if you bail out a bum or a bank, if you incentivize the bad behavior is what you're going to get. If you pay for bad behavior, you're going to get bad behavior.
Yes, exactly.
And if you just hands off and don't touch it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then the market's going to solve the problem for you. That's what the market does. It's a process.
Yes, unless it's artificially manipulated.
No, but that's what I mean with hands off. Like, and there is no free market. It has never been, arguably, because there's always someone meddling with everything.
Yeah.
Especially the money printers, the counterfeiters of the world,
Exactly.
that are always interfering with the market process and distorting signals by printing money.
Steven Pinker has a theory in The Blank Slate where he says that, populations of humans can sustain a certain number of cheats who are non-productive or who don't contribute or who game the system, but that properly, a properly run system, one without much intervention, will naturally take care of those cheats, and they will be found out, and they will have to abide by the rules. The problem we have with our current fiat system is obviously that it can sustain an extraordinarily large number of cheats, not least because the cheats are kind of in control of the system.
Yeah, absolutely. It incentivizes cheating. It really does. It incentivizes people to not be honest, but to if not being outright scammers themselves, then at least give in to scammers. So if you're a lubrication company, for instance, so if you're an accountant, all you're doing is that you're making sure that another company pays its taxes. So you're basically working for the mafia. It's all interventionism all the way down, and that's the saddest part of the story. And Bitcoin, that's why I get so irritated when people say Bitcoin is a database and stuff like that, because no, Bitcoin is the solution to exactly this. If we can have Bitcoin and we can transact with consent and permissionless and with no one interfering, it's just two people doing a thing. Then it solves all the other problems too. Because then we live in this libertarian utopia we dream of, and it's here, the tools are here, you can actually do that. So why not just adapt to it? Because it's going to play out anyway, regardless of your opinion on it.
Well, I mean, like you said earlier, and using the cheat example I just gave, it's an extraordinary, almost a discovery of a system that will not tolerate cheats.
It is a discovery. I love the frame of it being a discovery, because that also explains why it cannot be replicated.
Like pi.
Yeah.
That it's, and or like pi, a pi existed before a human ever drew a circle.
Yeah. That's a very good analogy. I've in Everything Divided, I wrote about it as being element zero, which is not my original idea, but I tried to flesh it out there, and it became a little video too. Like Joni Appleberg made a video of it. So, but the element zero idea is that Bitcoin is this. It's like an element on the periodic table, except it has no protons and neutrons. It's just electrons, and it's strictly informational. So the information about the element is the element. So if you found the information about it, you actually found a piece of this absolutely scarce element, and it's replicating the properties of gold. It cannot be very easily destroyed without putting an extreme amount of energy into trying to destroy it, which would be bribing the entire network to fuck it up. And it can absorb energy and all of this stuff. And it's also the only stable isotope, because all the shitcoins represent the isotopes that decay and fade away. And it's a very, like I said, I didn't come up with the idea, but I find it super fascinating.
It is.
If you Google element zero, I still think you can find the video.
Oh, and I'll have a look. Thomas Strolite wrote a lovely piece a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember Hello, I'm Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's great.
I liked when you were talking about the human network. I was reminded of his piece.
That was funny that you should mention Tomer. He's a good friend, and we first met in person in Miami 2022, and we compared articles to one another. And I was showing him what I was working on, and he's like, "Okay, let me show you what I'm working on." And turns out we're basically writing the same piece.
Oh, that's pretty funny. It's like convergent evolution.
Yeah. So, but holy shit, we're like the same person, but from different continents here. It was very
fantastic.
We figured out that we have some differences later on, but for the most part, we're just completely aligned.
That's wonderful. Well, but I hope when I see you in person, I'll bring a copy of the book, and if you can sign it for me, I'd be delighted.
Absolutely, and we'll have tons of books at all the conferences. Especially Helsinki, I'd say. That will sure be, yeah. And looking forward to seeing you there. Before we wrap this thing up, is there anything we haven't discussed yet?
Well, we didn't spend as much time on sort of our anti-CBDC work and our regulation stuff, but there's a lot of written work that I've done on that, and you can probably guess what I think about CBDCs from spending 30 seconds with me. So
can the TLDR be just fuck CBDCs, and you're doing hard work to make them go away?
Essentially that, yes.
That's great. If you want to know more about that, is there anywhere you want to send our listeners, like on the internet, or
I'm most busy
Freddie,
on,
of course.
Yeah, so Twitter and Nostr, I'm most visible on. So my Twitter handle or X handle is just @FreddieNew, all one word, and my Nostr NPub is in my X profile. And then Bitcoin Policy UK, our website's regularly updated with all of our work, and we're active on Twitter and Nostr as well.
Fantastic. And great conversation. I love this, and I love all the tangents we went to, because I enjoy that immensely.
That was really fun. I do like a tangent. And thank you so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, looking forward to meeting you in person in Helsinki and grab a pint or something.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
All right. This has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thank you for listening. Excelsior.
Thank you.